It was 6 in the morning on a Saturday, and there I was again standing in our kitchen making pancakes and bacon for my entire family, while the sound of my younger siblings sleeping in echoed through the house. I poured coffee into 5 mugs, feeling that familiar weight of responsibility settling on my shoulders, like a heavy blanket I could never take off. For years, I had convinced myself this was normal, that being the dependable eldest daughter meant sacrificing my weekends and free time. But as I flipped another pancake, something deep inside me whispered that today would be different, that today everything would finally change forever. Before I tell you how my family's double standards pushed me to my breaking point, drop a comment telling me where you are watching from and hit that like button if you have ever felt invisible in your own home. And make sure to subscribe because this story is going to show you exactly what happens when the responsible one finally says, enough is enough. My name is Leah, and at 22, I should have been living my best life as a recent college graduate. Instead, I was trapped in a cycle that had started when I was just 8 years old. My family consisted of my parents, David, who was 48 and worked in construction, and Sarah, who was 45 and managed a local grocery store. Then there were my younger siblings, Jake, who was 17 and obsessed with video games, and Emma, who was 15 and believed the world revolved around her social life. The division of household labor in our middle-class Texas home was so skewed it would have been laughable if it were not my reality. My daily responsibilities read like a full-time job description, preparing breakfast for 5 people, packing lunches, doing everyone's laundry, cleaning bathrooms, vacuuming the entire house, maintaining our backyard garden, grocery shopping meal, planning and cooking dinner every single night. Meanwhile, Jake's only responsibility was taking out the trash twice a week, which he often forgot or simply refused to do. Emma had zero assigned chores because she was still considered the baby of the family. This arrangement had evolved gradually over the years. When I was younger, I had actually felt proud to be trusted with important tasks. My parents would praise me for being mature and responsible, calling me their little helper. But what started as occasional assistance had somehow transformed into complete dependency. By the time I turned 18, I was essentially running the household, while my siblings enjoyed a life of leisure. The morning that changed everything began like any other. I had prepared a full breakfast spread, complete with fresh orange juice and perfectly crispy bacon. Jake wandered downstairs around 10, took one look at the trash can overflowing with garbage, and shrugged when I asked if he could take it out. I am busy with this new game that just dropped, he said, grabbing a plate of food before heading back to his room. The casual dismissal in his voice hit me differently that day. An hour later, Emma appeared in the kitchen wearing pajamas and an expectant smile. Leah, I need you to wash my blue dress today because I have a date tonight with Brandon, she announced, not asked. She had thrown the dress on top of an already mountainous pile of dirty clothes that somehow always became my responsibility. When I hesitated for just a moment, she added, You do not mind, right? You are so good at getting stains out. What struck me most was not their requests, but my parents' complete silence. Dad was reading his newspaper at the kitchen table, and Mom was scrolling through her phone, both of them witnessing this exchange without any intervention. They had become so accustomed to this dynamic that they no longer even noticed how unfair it was. That was when I felt the first crack in my acceptance of this situation. Later that morning, I decided to have a heart-to-heart conversation with my mother. I found her folding towels in the laundry room, and I gently brought up the idea of creating a more balanced chore system. Mom, I have been thinking that maybe Jake and Emma are old enough now to take on more responsibilities around the house, I said, trying to keep my tone light and non-confrontational. She looked up from the towels with a warm but dismissive smile. Oh, sweetheart, you have always been so responsible and capable. Your siblings will learn these skills eventually, but right now they have so much going on with school and their social lives. You understand. Do not you. Her response felt like a pat on the head, a gentle way of telling me to continue being the good daughter who never caused problems. I pressed a little further, suggesting we could create a weekly schedule that divided tasks more evenly. I could teach them everything they need to know. It might actually be good for them to learn independence before they go to college. For a moment, I thought I saw consideration in her eyes. I will think about it, she said finally, but her tone suggested it was more of a polite dismissal than a genuine promise. You know how your father and I appreciate everything you do. We are just so grateful to have one child who understands what family responsibility means. That conversation planted the first seeds of doubt in my mind. Was I being responsible or was I being taken advantage of? The question followed me through the rest of that weekend as I continued my endless cycle of household maintenance while my siblings enjoyed complete freedom from domestic obligations. The following week brought no changes whatsoever. My parents seemed to have forgotten our conversation entirely, and life continued exactly as it had before. If anything, Jake and Emma seemed to interpret my temporary silence as permission to become even more demanding. Jake had developed a new habit of leaving dirty dishes in his bedroom, apparently expecting me to venture upstairs and collect them, like some sort of maid service. When I mentioned this during dinner, he rolled his eyes and said, "It is not like you are not going upstairs anyway." The casual entitlement in his voice was breathtaking. Emma had started inviting her friends over more frequently, hosting impromptu gatherings that left our living room looking like a tornado had swept through it. Pizza boxes, empty soda cans, makeup scattered across the coffee table, and clothes strewn everywhere became the aftermath of her social events. When I asked her to clean up after one particularly messy session, she waved me off with, "You know you will handle it anyway, and you are so much better at making everything look perfect." My typical day had become a marathon of thankless labor. I would wake up at 6 in the morning to prepare breakfast, grab a quick shower, and head to my part-time job at a local marketing firm. During my lunch break, I would often stop by the grocery store to pick up ingredients for dinner. After work, I would come home to find the kitchen exactly as I had left it that morning, sometimes with the addition of dirty dishes that had accumulated throughout the day. The evening routine never varied. I would clean up the breakfast mess, start laundry vacuum the common areas, and begin preparing dinner. While I cooked, Jake would be gaming in his room with his door closed, and Emma would be on video calls with her friends, both of them completely oblivious to the domestic orchestra happening around them. After dinner, they would disappear to their respective activities, while I handled the cleanup, finished the laundry, and prepared for another identical day. The breaking point came on a Sunday morning when I woke up feeling under the weather. My head was pounding, and my throat felt scratchy and raw. All I wanted was to stay in bed for a few extra hours and let my body recover. But by 9 o'clock, I could hear Jake complaining loudly from the kitchen. "There is nothing to eat," he announced to the house in general, his tone suggesting this was somehow a crisis requiring immediate attention. When I dragged myself downstairs, still in my pajamas and clearly unwell, he looked at me expectantly. "Can you make some of those pancakes? I am really hungry." I explained that I was feeling sick and asked if he could manage breakfast for himself this time. His response was immediate and uncompromising. "But you know I cannot cook anything complicated and cereal is not really breakfast. Come on, it will not take you that long." Moments later, Emma appeared with an armload of dirty clothes, including the dress she had worn on her date. "Leah, I need these washed today because I wore this shirt twice already and people will notice if I wear it again tomorrow. You are not too sick to run the washing machine, are you?" The casual assumption that my illness was not important enough to warrant a break from my duties felt like a slap in the face. But what truly crushed me was my father's response when he found me standing in the kitchen, clearly unwell and overwhelmed. "Just do it quickly, sweetheart. You are already up and it will not take long. You can rest afterward." Something inside me finally snapped. The words came pouring out before I could stop them. "I have been doing everything in this house for years. Every meal, every load of laundry, every single chore, while you two do absolutely nothing. I am sick today, and still no one can make their own breakfast or wash their own clothes." The silence that followed was deafening. My family stared at me as if I had suddenly started speaking in a foreign language. Jake was the first to respond, his voice dripping with teenage disdain. "Why are you being so dramatic? It is not like we are asking you to build a house or something." Emma chimed in with equal dismissiveness. "Seriously, Leah, it is not that hard to throw some clothes in the washer. You are just complaining because you do not feel good, but you are being kind of ridiculous." That evening, I requested a family meeting. I had spent the afternoon thinking about how to articulate my feelings constructively, and I was determined to have a rational conversation about fairness and responsibility. I laid out the facts clearly. I was spending upward of 4 hours every day on household tasks, while my siblings contributed less than 30 minutes per week. I presented specific examples, documented patterns, and reasonable solutions. I explained how this arrangement was affecting my job performance, my social life, and my overall well-being. I was careful to avoid accusatory language, instead focusing on the practical benefits of a more equitable distribution of labor. My father's response was swift and defensive. "Leah, we raised you to be responsible and capable because we knew you could handle it. Your siblings are different. They need more time to mature, and frankly, you have always been better at managing household things anyway. We are not asking you to do anything unreasonable. Arvris, the conversation that followed revealed something that chilled me to the bone. My parents genuinely believed that my competence justified their exploitation of my labor. In their minds, my ability to manage household tasks efficiently meant that it was actually logical and fair for me to handle everything. They were not being malicious, they were being thoughtlessly selfish, which somehow felt worse. The explosion happened on a Friday evening 3 weeks later. I had just returned from a particularly demanding day at work, looking forward to a quiet evening at home. Instead, I walked into what looked like the aftermath of a college party. Emma had hosted an impromptu gathering while my parents were at work, and the evidence was everywhere. Pizza boxes were stacked on the coffee table, surrounded by empty soda cans and scattered napkins. Someone had spilled something sticky on the hardwood floor that was already attracting ants. The bathroom looked like a makeup store had exploded with products scattered across every surface and towels thrown carelessly on the floor. Even worse, there were muddy footprints tracked through the living room from kids who had apparently been going in and out of the backyard. Jake was in his usual position, sprawled on the couch with his gaming headset on, completely oblivious to the chaos around him. When I tapped his shoulder and asked if he could help clean up, he barely glanced away from his screen. "I did not make this mess," he said with a shrug. "Emma had people over, not me." I climbed the stairs to find Emma, but her room was empty. A quick check of my phone revealed a text message sent 20 minutes earlier. "Thanks for cleaning up, sis. Gone to see a movie with Brandon and will not be back until late. You are the best. We chain and on and we too." The casual assumption that I would handle the destruction left by her social event felt like a punch to the stomach. But the final straw was yet to come. My parents had left a note on the kitchen counter. "Leah, we decided to have a date night and we'll be back around 11. Please clean up whatever mess the kids made and maybe start some laundry." Thanks, honey. Standing in that destroyed living room, surrounded by the evidence of my family's complete disregard for my time and energy, I experienced something I can only describe as a moment of absolute clarity. I was not a beloved daughter who was appreciated for her contributions. I was unpaid domestic labor, a live-in maid who happened to share their DNA. The realization was not accompanied by sadness or anger, but by a strange sense of calm determination. I walked through the house surveying the extent of the damage and made mental calculations about how long it would take to restore order. 3 hours minimum. 3 hours of my Friday night spent cleaning up messes I had no part in creating, with no acknowledgement, no gratitude, and certainly no reciprocation. When my parents returned from their date night, they found me waiting in the living room, with my hands folded calmly in my lap. The mess remained exactly as I had found it. My father's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Sweetheart, we thought you would have cleaned up by now. Is everything all right?" What followed was the most honest conversation I had ever had with my parents. I explained with remarkable composure exactly how their household management system functioned. I broke down the hours, the expectations, and the complete absence of reciprocity. I detailed how my siblings had learned to view me not as their sister, but as their personal servant. "You are overreacting," my mother said, her voice taking on a sharp edge I rarely heard. "We have always appreciated everything you do. You know that." "This is just how families work," my father added. "Everyone contributes in different ways. You are good at domestic things, so you handle the house. Jake is focused on his studies and his future career. Emma is still learning how to be responsible." But it was my siblings' responses that truly broke my heart. Jake looked up from his phone long enough to say, "This is seriously stupid, Leah. Just clean up and stop being weird about it." Emma, who had returned from her movie just as the conversation was reaching its peak, delivered the line that changed everything. "You are being way too sensitive about this. It is not like we are asking you to do anything impossible." The word sensitive hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Too sensitive for wanting basic respect. Too sensitive for expecting my contributions to be acknowledged. Too sensitive for asking my siblings to clean up their own messes. In that moment, I understood that no amount of conversation, pleading, or reasoning was going to change this dynamic. "I am moving out tonight," I said quietly, and the room fell completely silent. My father laughed a short bark of disbelief. "Come on, Leah, do not be ridiculous. Where are you going to go?" "You are just upset," my mother added, her tone shifting to the soothing voice she used when she thought I was having an emotional breakdown. "Why do not you sleep on it and we can talk about this tomorrow when everyone is feeling calmer?" But I was not upset. and I was not having an emotional breakdown. I was thinking more clearly than I had in years. I pulled out my phone and called my best friend Madison, who had been encouraging me to set boundaries with my family for months. "Can I stay with you for a while?" I asked, and her immediate yes confirmed what I already knew: real friends do not take advantage of your kindness. The next 2 hours were a whirlwind of activity as I packed my essential belongings into 3 large suitcases. I took my clothes, my important documents, my laptop, and a few sentimental items that meant the most to me. Everything else could be replaced. My family's reactions during this process revealed everything I needed to know about their priorities. Emma was the most honest. "Wait, who is going to do my laundry? I have that job interview on Monday and I need my good dress cleaned." Jake's concern was equally telling. "This is really inconvenient timing, Leah. I have finals next week and I was counting on you to handle food and stuff." My parents alternated between anger and panic, clearly struggling to process the reality that their domestic support system was walking out the door. They offered compromises, promised changes, and even suggested we could create that chore schedule I had requested months earlier. But their timing revealed the truth. They were not sorry for how they had treated me. They were sorry about losing their unpaid housekeeper. Walking out of that house at 11:30 on a Friday night with my suitcases in tow was simultaneously the scariest and most empowering moment of my life. My hands were shaking as I loaded my car, but my resolve was steady. I was choosing my own well-being over their convenience, and that felt revolutionary. Madison welcomed me with open arms and a bottle of wine, ready to listen to the whole story without judgment. She had watched this dynamic play out for years, and she had been waiting for me to reach this conclusion on my own. "I am so proud of you," she said as we sat in her living room at midnight, "but I am also not surprised. You have been giving them everything while getting nothing in return." The first few months of independence were challenging in ways I had not anticipated. Financially, I was stretched thin, even with my part-time job. Emotionally, I felt guilty and sometimes questioned whether I had overreacted. There were moments when I missed the familiarity of home, even if that familiarity came with exploitation. But there were also discoveries that changed my perspective on everything. I learned that I actually enjoyed cooking when I was preparing meals for people who appreciated them. I found out that household maintenance was not overwhelming when it was distributed fairly among the people who lived there. Most importantly, I discovered what it felt like to have my contributions valued rather than simply expected. Madison became more than just a roommate. She became a model for healthy relationships. She thanked me for cooking dinner and reciprocated by handling dishes. When I cleaned the bathroom, she tackled the kitchen. When either of us felt overwhelmed, the other stepped up without being asked. This was how functional adults shared living space, and it was a revelation. After 6 months, I had saved enough money to rent a small apartment of my own. It was tiny and far from luxurious, but it was mine. I decorated it exactly how I wanted, kept it as clean or messy as suited my mood, and invited over only people who treated me with respect. The peace I felt in that space was unlike anything I had experienced living under my parents' roof. My job performance improved dramatically once I was not exhausted from maintaining an entire household single-handedly. My supervisor noticed my increased focus and energy, leading to a promotion and a significant raise. I started dating again, something I had barely had time for when every evening was consumed with domestic obligations. I rediscovered hobbies and friendships that had been neglected during my years of servitude. About 4 months after I moved out, my family began reaching out more frequently. The texts and phone calls started casually asking how I was doing and mentioning how much they missed me. Gradually, the real message emerged: they were struggling without their built-in household manager. Jake had gained weight eating nothing but fast food and frozen dinners. Emma had shown up to several important events in wrinkled clothes because she had never learned to use an iron. My parents were arguing more frequently about domestic responsibilities, each expecting the other to fill the gap I had left behind. The official apology came in the form of a family dinner invitation. "We realize we may have taken advantage of your good nature," my father said over the phone, "and we would like to make things right." The careful phrasing told me they still did not fully understand the extent of their behavior, but it was a start. When I returned for that dinner, the changes were immediately apparent. Jake had prepared a grocery list and actually done the shopping. Emma had cleaned the bathroom without being asked. My parents had worked together to cook the meal, something I had rarely witnessed during my years living there. The house was cleaner than I had seen it in years, clearly the result of everyone contributing rather than one person carrying the entire burden. The conversation that evening was different from any we had shared before. My siblings apologized for treating me like hired help rather than their sister. My parents acknowledged that they had failed to recognize the unfairness of their expectations. Most importantly, they all admitted that they had learned valuable life skills during my absence that they should have developed years earlier. I accepted their apologies, but I also made it clear that moving back home was not an option. I had discovered something invaluable in my independence, and I was not willing to sacrifice it for the sake of family convenience. Instead, I proposed a new relationship based on mutual respect and reciprocity. Now, when I visit my family, it is as a guest, rather than as unpaid labor. If I choose to cook a meal or help with a project, it is because I want to, not because it is expected. My siblings have learned to manage their own domestic needs, and my parents have developed a more equitable distribution of household responsibilities. The house runs differently now, but it runs, and everyone contributes. The most profound lesson I learned through this experience is that love without respect is not really love at all. My family loved me, but they did not respect my time, my energy, or my individual needs. They saw me as an extension of their convenience, rather than as a person with my own dreams and limitations. Walking away taught them and me that real family relationships require mutual consideration and appreciation. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for people who take you for granted is to stop enabling their selfishness. By removing myself from the equation, I forced my family to confront their own capabilities and responsibilities. They discovered they were more capable than they had believed, and I discovered I was worthy of more respect than I had been receiving. To anyone who finds themselves in a similar situation, remember that being helpful and being exploited are two entirely different things. Family members who truly care about your well-being will not consistently take advantage of your good nature. You deserve relationships that are built on mutual support, rather than one-sided sacrifice. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary for healthy relationships. Sometimes you have to be willing to walk away from situations that do not serve you, even when those situations involve people you love. The temporary discomfort of change is worth the long-term benefit of being treated with the respect you deserve. My story is not about holding grudges or punishing people for past mistakes. It is about recognizing your own worth and refusing to accept less than you deserve. Today, my family relationships are stronger than they have ever been precisely because they are built on a foundation of mutual respect rather than assumed obligation. What experiences have you had with family dynamics or household responsibilities? Have you ever felt taken for granted by the people closest to you? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because I would love to hear your stories and support anyone who might be going through something similar. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button to help others find it, and do not forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about setting boundaries and finding your voice. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that their worth is not measured by how much they sacrifice for others. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that you deserve relationships that celebrate your contributions, rather than simply expecting them. I hope you find the courage to demand the respect you deserve just like I finally did.